We'll now turn to the articles for this lesson. I selected the first one on cashierless stores to give you a specific instance of the types of changes that we're talking about in the future of work, as well as how they're related to data science. So the way cashierless stores work is probably pretty clear that some technology is used to record what you take and to bill you automatically for that without a cashier being involved at all. There's a variety of technologies that can be used to do this. One of them is barcodes, although the article mentions that those are being phased out. Another one would be you actually taking a picture with your phone of everything that you purchased. Another one is sensors on shelves that detect what you remove. And another one that I suspect may be the pervasive one going forward is a system of cameras in the stores that record what you've done. And that, by the way, you can think of as analogous or related to what we see in facial recognition, where you have computer vision augmented by AI. The article mentions that there still are limitations to this. For instance, there aren't good ways to price things that require you to weigh what you've taken, but probably those things will make progress as time goes on. As far as the impact of jobs, it's obvious that if this gets to be pervasive, then the job of cashier will go away. And of course, that's a job that started going away as self-checkout systems were put in place. As far as the impact on retail jobs, which we've seen is one of the major categories of jobs in the United States, this is probably a smaller impact than the impact from online shopping, which of course has had a huge impact, and like several other things in this discussion, has probably seen its impact accelerated by the pandemic. The next article looks more broadly at how vulnerable jobs are to automation at an international level. This is related to charts that we've seen before for the United States. I'll just concentrate on two parts of this article. One is the chart that shows the types of jobs that are facing the most contraction or expansion. They're grouped somewhat differently than we've seen previously, but what I find particularly interesting is that in the categories of jobs that they cite as being vulnerable, after the two most vulnerable, which are manufacturing and transportation, the third most vulnerable category is financial jobs. So this gets to a comment that I indicated before, that there are professional jobs that are vulnerable as the future of work proceeds as well. And you often read that jobs in finance and accounting are particularly susceptible to automation. And of course, the advent of data science has a lot to do with that. The other thing that I think one should look at in this article is their list of the top 10 skills in 2015 versus the top 10 skills in 2020. Complex problem solving is at the top of both of those lists. But then the change is that in the 2020 list, critical thinking and creativity move up to 2 and 3, whereas coordinating with others and people management move down to 5 and 4. I think the way to summarize this is that we're entering a world where people do what technology can't do. And the top 3 things on that 2020 list, complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity, are exactly the sorts of things that we will always rely on people to do. That's important to you as you think about what your strengths are going to be going forward. And by the way, for any of us who are or think about being educators, it's crucially important in what we want to teach or reinforce with students. The final 2 articles, which were both written quite recently relative to when I'm recording this, give some updates on how the future of work is being viewed globally, as well as what this might mean for your own careers. The first gives a summary of a recent World Economic Forum study on the future of work, and the second is the actual executive summary of that study. I'm going to comment on the 2 of them together. Keeping in mind what I said earlier, that you can find studies with hugely varying predictions of whether jobs will be gained more or lost more, what this one says is that, or what I should say this one predicts, is that over the next 5 years worldwide, 85 million jobs would be lost and 97 million jobs would be gained for a very small net increase. I didn't find anywhere in the articles or actually in the study itself the total number of jobs worldwide that they're comparing this to, but other data I found estimated that at a little bit over 3 billion. So the total of the jobs lost and created is somewhat under 10% of the total over a period of 5 years. Another interesting thing that the article predicts is that it anticipates work being equally divided by humans and machines by 2025, with significant reskilling involved, which of course, as we've discussed before, is the challenge for the people who are involved. Importantly, the jobs to be automated prominently include data processing and administrative tasks, which reinforces a point that we've made before, but I think sometimes gets lost in these discussions. And this is due to AI and data science. The report contains lists of jobs that are both most susceptible to decrease and to increase, and I found those lists quite interesting. So I'm going to share those with you now, and we'll put those up on the screen. So the 10 jobs that this report finds most likely to decrease, I think in order of first most to 10th most, are data entry clerks, administrative and executive secretaries, accounting, bookkeeping, and payroll clerks, accountants and auditors, assembly and factory workers, business services and administration managers, client information and customer service workers, general and operations managers, mechanics and machinery repairers, and material recording and stock keeping clerks. So if you're going to make one observation from that, there's a lot of the more routine professional and administrative jobs that are represented in that list. What about the jobs that are most likely to increase? At the top of that list are data analysts and scientists, AI and machine learning specialists, big data specialists, then digital marketing and strategy specialists, process automation specialists, business development professionals, digital transformation specialists, information security analysts, software and application developers, and Internet of Things specialists. So what's the observation from that? I'd say twofold. First of all of you who are studying to be data scientists are in pretty good shape, because the first 3 jobs are all basically data scientist jobs, and most of these jobs are technologist jobs. There's an additional important and, in my view, major concern reflected in the World Economic Forum report, and that's that the impact of the job losses and dislocations, as you might expect, will be disproportionately felt by lower income workers, as well as women and younger workers. And along with that, it points out, as we've indicated earlier, that people will need to reskill quickly, and that employers are investing in this, but not investing enough. And this is where the ethical conversations come in, or at least one of the places where the ethical conversations come in, and we're going to get to that very shortly. I'll finally comment in terms of the articles that I included an optional, very brief additional article, largely to give you a little bit of personal encouragement. This is the one about managers, and you may not be managers now or yet, but it's very likely that many of you will be before long. And so this article quotes an IBM executive as saying that, quote, AI is not going to replace managers, but managers that use AI will replace those that do not. So learning data science, including a fair bit of AI, is a good thing for you to do. So what are the ethical issues that are related to all of this? They're far more profound than we're fully equipped for here, as it really gets into who in society is responsible for making sure that everyone has the skills for good employment, what society does when people lose jobs through no fault of their own, and a variety of other issues that would require understandings not only of what we talk about, but also issues of public policy, economics, and more. Some of the questions that one could consider include the following that will go up on the screen now. First, do the people or organizations that are behind the changes which cause jobs to disappear have an obligation to help the people who lose those jobs? Who has an obligation to help people retrain? Governments, companies, other entities? In times of rapid job dislocations, do governments or past employers have an obligation to provide greater safety nets for people who lose jobs? And finally, will we enter a world where there is sufficient wealth for all, but not sufficient work for all? And if that's the case, should society provide a guaranteed basic income for all? If you were to read the economics literature particularly, this is a topic that's discussed a lot. It's often discussed in terms of the concept of a universal basic income. And in fact, that's even a topic that crept to a minor extent into the recent United States presidential primary debates. For our final discussion, I'd like you to address at least two of these questions. You might think that that's unfair and that you're not really equipped to address them, but I'll say a few things in response. First, there's no right or wrong answers. Secondly, you're all citizens of nations that will look at issues like this, and so it's important to start thinking about them. And third, a number of you will become leaders of businesses or other organizations where people look to you to have opinions and advice on issues like this. So it's good to think about issues of this magnitude. As before, what I'd like you to do is choose at least two of these questions, provide answers to them, and then choose answers that fellow students have provided to at least two of these questions and comment on those answers. In conclusion, I hope you found this course interesting, worthwhile, and maybe even fun. Like many topics related to technology, there's probably just one hope and one guarantee. The hope is that I hope you find some of the things that you've learned in this course to be useful to you. And the guarantee is that much of it will be outdated pretty quickly. So I also hope that you'll keep up with some of these ethical issues and discussions as your careers proceed.